What is up, guys? Welcome back to Wild Rift University, where you come to learn the high micro and macro aspects of the game. I'm Thing1, and today we got a great video for you. I've been having people ask me to make a video about builds. So I've already done one video about jungle build guide pathing. And if you haven't watched that video, scroll down to some of my beginning videos and it's in there. This one's actually going to be about ADC. But I wanted to give you guys a little brief update on how I'm doing in the climb so far this season. So I told you guys in a couple of videos ago, and I think I may have said it more than once, I'm going to be primarily playing Legend Q. I like Legend Q better because there's no rank protection. And I feel like the players that are playing it are just a little bit more serious and everything. You can only play champions that you're proficient at. So I like that aspect of it better. I am going to go play ranked as well, probably near the end of the season, but I'm going to try and make a push early for Legend or maybe just high Immortal. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do yet. So far, the climb's going really well, so I just wanted to give you guys an update on how I'm doing. I'm currently Vanquisher 4 at 65 games in, 66.2 win rate, 5.3 KDA. Decent team fight. I am a jungler, so I'm not there for like every single fight because sometimes I'm, in the jungle while people are fighting. Gold per minute is a little lower than I'd like to see. I actually kind of feel like that might be a little, that's about where I usually am. Damage is what it is, and damage taken. I usually play Assassin, so I don't really take a lot of damage. And I play kill secure a lot of times. MVPs, S ratings, and everything. As you can see, what do I got? About 30. Yeah, basically about 30, almost 50% of the time, I'm getting an A rating or better, almost 50% of the time. So doing pretty well in the climb this season. Definitely planning on, trying to get higher. Also, just to kind of show you guys right now, this is not currently accurate. It's showing, it hasn't updated yet. So I'll just show you. Vanquisher 4. 63 points, 43 wins, 22 losses. And that put me at what? I'm at 63 points. So when the server resets, that would hopefully put me around, the top 100 and something. Yeah, because 63 is technically 109, but it's going to reset. Other people have won games too. So hopefully in the top, somewhere in the top 100 something is kind of where we'll be going. But anyways, guys, let's get back to the video. We're going to be talking about build pathing. And so one of the biggest mistakes that I see with people when they're playing a champion is they just get completely set on one build. They have it in their mind, like, okay, this is how this champion's supposed to be built. They go over to top players, and we'll just click Vayne for this example, and they go, okay, this is how you build Vayne, boom, done. And maybe they'll look at the top 3 and like, okay, I could do this, something like this. And this is basically what they do. They look at the top about 2 or 3 people and they say, okay, so this is how Vayne has to be built. And then they build Vayne this way. However, this is correct, but this is also incorrect. These are not the builds you want to do in every single situation. There's different situations for each one of these builds, okay? And we're gonna do a basic breakdown of how to know what to build, when to build, if you're playing ADC, okay? And we're just gonna use Vayne as an example because I feel like lots of people play Vayne. She's a pretty versatile ADC as well. So we're just going to use Vayne in this example. A lot of these, even if you're not a Vayne player, these concepts still work, okay? These concepts still work, all right? So with Vayne, there's a couple of things. So first of all, Kraken Slayer. I personally do like Kraken. I do Kraken Slayer as well on Vayne. I think Kraken Slayer is really good early game on Vayne, which kind of helps her out. So when you're first picking your first little runes, so if I feel like I'm going to have a struggle in lane, I'm probably going to go Kraken Slayer because I just want that extra early game strength and damage and everything. So that would probably be the reason why I go Kraken Slayer. However, if I'm looking for, if they have a really late game scaling comp, and I feel like it's going to be a very standstill lane, I may not go Kraken Slayer, actually. I might go Conqueror for the late game damage further on, plus the extra vampirism. Now, for me, I almost always go Gathering Storm, almost always, on Vayne. However, there are situations where I wouldn't go Gathering Storm, but it's pretty rare for me. Especially, I like Vayne a lot, and I love to play her late game type. So there are situations where I wouldn't do that. Like if I have a team, like if it's a game where I know I'm just going to be getting absolutely owned, I'm probably going to run Vampirism just for the additional lifesteal and sustain in lane. I know there's some people who would say, you could run Fleet Footwork on Vayne as well in lane. If you're running Fleet Footwork, you're probably just very new to Vayne. I don't really think it's good on Vayne. If you're really new to Vayne and you just feel like you're in a lane where you're going to completely get owned, Fleet Footwork with Vampirism would work, but otherwise I wouldn't personally ever do it. I don't really think it's that great. Giant Slayer, obviously only if they have lots of tanks on their team. Otherwise, you don't, it does help. It is great, that extra 10%. If they got 3 tanks on their team, then I'd probably run Giant Slayer. Otherwise, no, because Vayne naturally already just crushes tanks. But if they don't have more than 3 tanks. But otherwise, if I feel like the game's going to go... If I feel like the game's going to go late, I always want Gathering Storm. If I feel like, the game's not going to go super late, but I do need a little bit of early damage, but I don't feel like I'm going to necessarily need, the healing. It's just more so a little damage. It's not, sustaining in lane. So you have to ask yourselves these questions. What are the obstacles that I'm going to face in lane, okay? Because your runes do help you, outside of lane, but they're primarily designed to help your early game. You have to think about in that perspective. So is it okay, I'm going to lose in this match if I just don't have a tiny bit more damage early, so then I'd go Brutal. But like I said, for me, I'm really confident in my Vayne play, so I go Gathering Storm. And that's why a lot of times I go Kraken Slayer. Kraken Slayer gives me that extra little bit of early game damage, but the Gathering Storm gives me the late game damage that I'm going. Hunter Titan is basically almost what I always go because the extra tenacity in case I get locked down is really great. However, I will go Nullifying Orb sometime if they're kind of bursty as well. And then those are about really the only other ones that I will use. I don't really use Adaptive, and I don't really use Bone Plating ever on her, but that's just me. Now, this is where you can kind of get a little bit risky. So I like to go Pack Hunter on Vayne. And the reason why I like to go Pack Hunter on Vayne is I feel like Vayne's strength is all about her mobility and team fights and everything. So I personally liked, and because I'm confident in Vayne, I personally like to sacrifice some of the early gold and health regen that I get from Sweet Tooth to go Pack Hunter. But that's kind of an up to you thing, If you're not really good at surviving with Vayne, Sweet Tooth is never a bad choice at all. I just personally like to go Pack Hunter. Okay? So, and then spells, for me personally, I love Exhaust. I know some people like Ignite, some people like Barrier. I think Exhaust is just one of the best, absolute best spells in the game. The only time I really go Ignite is if they have lots of healing. And then Barrier, I used to go Barrier if they had lots of Assassins, but even then I still like Exhaust even on Assassins because I can exhaust them right before they go in on me. But that's just me, guys. It's completely up to you. So, okay, let's break down the build. The thing that everybody wants to know. How do you know what to build and what not to build? So right here, I'm going to just show you. This is a pretty standard Vayne build, okay? Pretty standard Vayne build. Some people may say, hey, no, not super standard because I don't have Mortal Reminder in there. Vayne naturally just shreds armor just as it is, so I don't always find it super necessary. Obviously, if it's a super tanky composition, it'd be different. But for me, this is my go-to Vayne build, okay? Almost all the time. Now, there's a couple things that I don't defer from almost no matter what, and we'll kind of break that down. So, for example, I'm always going to go Blade of the Rune King first item. Probably almost 100% of the time I'm going to go Blade of the Rune King first item. Just because it gives me the extra attack damage, it gives me the spell vampirism, and then it gives me the passive where it slows them down as well. So like those are the things that I like to think. And then, you know, the physical damage equals to 6% of enemy's current health on hit. Okay, so the extra health damage as well works really great with Vayne and just her true damage, the way that she shreds tanks. Blade of the Rune King to me is just like a non-negotiable item. Has to be first build, okay? Now, my build, this would be considered an aggressive build. And I don't actually usually always build Guardian Angel, even though I have it on there. A lot of times I'll actually switch out this GA and I'll finish it with like either a Mortal Reminder, or even sometimes like if I'm really ahead and they don't have a lot of tanks, I'll finish it with like a Bloodthirster or Quick Blades. Okay, but we'll kind of go into that, or I'll even do a Grudge. We'll go into that here though in just a little bit. Now, like I said, Blade of the Rune King to me is always a first item just because it synergizes with her kit so well. There are always going to be items, oh yeah, or sometimes I'll do Wit's End, but like I said, we'll talk about that. Now, Stormrazor is my second favorite item to build on Vayne. I love this item. However, depending on the situation, I won't build it. This is the build that I do when I'm ahead, that you see right here, okay? The only way that this basically changes is if I'm like super ahead, then I won't build Guardian Angel. I'll build some other type of crit item, so that way I get 100% crit, okay? So if I have GA in there just as a backup, just in case, because I'm always expecting it to go late game, and I'm going to need that just to survive the game. But otherwise, I'm basically usually building a Mortal Reminder, maybe a Bloodthirster, maybe a Quick Blades, something like that, maybe a Wit's End, maybe a Seraphim, but we'll go in there. But now, this is my build if I'm ahead, if I'm winning lane. Now, let's say I'm not winning lane. Let's say I'm getting owned in lane, okay? What would your next item be? Okay, well, it depends. It really depends. You have to ask yourself, why am I getting owned right now? What is owning me? Okay, am I getting owned because they have a Seraphine and a Lux, and then they have let's say a Ziggs who keeps rotating to my lane, and the AP is busting me out? You need to pay attention when you die, what damage is actually killing you. So if it's AP that's really killing me, I'm going to defer, and my second item is actually going to get switched over to Wit's End, okay? I'm going to build Wit's End second instead, okay? So I'm going to kind of change this up real quick. So let's say, yeah, I do Wit's End second, okay? Now, let's say it isn't necessarily like a magic damage that I'm not losing because of the type of damage that's being done, but I'm losing those like last second trades in everything. Okay, you know those fights, you know how you have those fights where it's like, man, like we're both like equal. It's just one tiny bit of health. I just needed one extra auto attack, or I just needed a half a second more, and then I win the fight. Well, then what I might do instead of Wit's End is Phantom Dancer second, okay? I might do Phantom Dancer second. And the reason why Phantom Dancer second is because, read this, lifeline damage that puts you under 35% health grants you a shield that absorbs 240 to 590 damage for 5 seconds. Think about that. That's like 3 auto attacks, basically. That blocks 3 damages of auto attacks, okay? So if I'm losing the fights just because they're super close, but like I'm not able to tank enough damage, and it's just like all damage in general, it's not like one specific type of damage. Like if it's one specific type of damage, then yes, Wit's End. But if it's just damage in general, well, then Phantom Dancer is actually the way for me to go, okay? By going Phantom Dancer, I'm going to get 5 seconds of 240 to 590 damage absorption, okay? And that really helps your all-ins. That's also going to be like really great against, you know, assassins. Like when you have assassins who are coming after you, getting this shield to absorb some of that damage for you, it's going to be massive. It's going to be massive, okay? So like I said, you really, when it comes to building, you really have to ask yourself, what is the damage that's killing me, okay? What is the damage that's killing me, all right? You have to ask yourself. So like, that's kind of like breaking down second items, okay? Now, Another thing that I could do, let's say the lane is still going like fairly well, okay? So typically I'll have, me personally, I'll have Blade of the Rune King finished by the time Dragon's up, okay? That's basically always my goal. Blade of the Rune King finished by the time Dragon spawns, all right? So let's say that the lane's just going good, it's going neutral, all right? I have Blade of the Rune King built and everything. Everything's going neutral, everything's going fine. And I'm just sticking on my traditional build path here. Well, how do I decide which one of these two to build next, okay? How do I decide between the BF sword or do I build the shard? How do I decide? Once again, you have to ask yourself, what is stopping me from executing? What is stopping me from getting kills? Am I not attacking fast enough, or am I just not producing enough damage? You have to pay attention to these things, because this is building between these two items right here, the BF sword and the shard or whatever. Building between these two items right here could be the difference between you snowballing and falling behind, okay? If you're not getting the kills just because you're doing enough damage, but you're not getting your attacks off fast enough, well, then you need the shard. But if you're just not doing enough damage in general, then you need the BF sword, okay? I know that sounds counterproductive. You're like, well, if I had the BF sword, then I would have more damage and it wouldn't matter if my attacks. No, there is a difference. The fact that you don't understand the difference, that's your own fault. You have to learn what that is, okay? And the way you learn what that is, so this is how, okay? Pay attention to the trades. If you're like getting off kind of like the same amount of attacks or maybe one more or one less, okay, then yeah, it might be a damage thing, okay? But if you're just getting attacked way more than they're attacking you, well, then it's an attack speed thing, okay? You have to be able to gauge that difference. That's kind of how you tell the difference between what do I actually need. Because if you don't know what you actually need, that's how you do. I just explained to you how to know what you actually need. If you're getting out-traded because they're attacking you more than you can attack them, it's you need additional attack speed. If you're getting about the same amount of attacks off, but you're dying just because they're because their attacks are doing more damage, then you need the damage, okay? So, and that works with every single item that you're building. Think about it, okay? It's the exact same thing if you're building this, okay? Do I need the damage, or am I losing because I'm not producing enough crit, okay? You have to look at the exact same way. If you're not paying attention to if you're critting or if you're not critting, that's how you know, okay? Everybody always just goes damage side, but that's not correct. Sometimes what you need is the attack speed, or what you need is the crit. Okay, like if they're really squishy and everything, I might be going to crit because I know in a fight I'm going to get maybe 2 or 3 crits off, and that's going to completely change the whole game. Because instead of maybe doing 200 damage, I'm going to get 2 or 3 crits of 250 to 350 damage, something of that nature. Okay. Okay, so let's say, the beginning of the game is going normal. I feel like for most people, the first 2 items, the game goes pretty normal for everybody. Like, obviously there's always games where things snowball at hand. You get super far ahead right away. You fall behind, okay? But let's say the game's just going normal. You got your first 2 items, okay? Now, I like to build Static Shift because Static Shift is a snowball item, okay? If you're playing a build similar to this one, you want to go Static Shift if you're snowballing because Static Shift is going to give you additional damage because of its passive, and it's going to give you additional wave clear, okay? Static Shift is a snowball item. It's what you go in your head. You don't go Static Shift if you're behind. If you're behind, what you're going to go is something like Phantom Dancer or maybe a Wit's End. Once again, how do you know? If you're dying because of AP, well then I'm going to switch that Static Shift out for a Wit's End. This is a more realistic way of how the game will probably go. Most people have their first 2 items they're always going to build. Even me, for the most part, I'm going to build these 2 items right here, no matter how I'm doing in lane. This is just how it is. I'd have to really be getting owned to change out these 2 items, because to me, personally, these 2 items are super core. For Vayne, they're super core. The 3rd item I'm more willing to move around, but the first 2 for me is really core. Like I said, I would have to be absolutely getting smashed on to change the build path from these 2 items, and even then I would be hesitant. So this right here is probably even the better way. So if it's AP that's killing me, I'm going to switch over to Wit's End. Okay, and then once again, how do you decide where to go? Most people, I guarantee you what they're going to do is they're going to build the attack speed side first. No. A lot of times when I'm building Wit's End, I'm actually going to build the Megatron cloak first, because the whole reason I'm building it is to survive more. Okay, it's the whole reason I'm building. I'm going to build to survive. Okay, think about it. Just think about what you actually need, okay? And then, like I said, the Wit's End is going to give you great extra damage, extra health steal when you get there. Like I said, if it's all a mixture of damage, then you're going to go Phantom Dancer, okay? You're going to go Phantom Dancer instead of Wit's End, okay? It all really depends. Okay, the fourth item, you almost have to. You have to have Infinity Edge on Vayne. This is another non-negotiable item as well, in my opinion, because the additional crit that it gives you, and like I said, crit strikes deal 230% damage instead of 200. That is, to me, that's just massive, okay? Absolutely massive, okay? Now, like, I would personally never drop Infinity Edge. Like, if, let's say you're just super far behind and it's like everything that's killing you, well, then I would probably do something like this, okay? This would be like a safe build, like if I'm just absolutely getting demolished because AP is killing me, damage is killing me, then this right here is probably exact build that I would build. Okay, like I'm behind, everyone's blowing me up. Well, I'm going to have the Blade of the Rune King, I'm going to have a Wit's End, I'm going to have a Phantom Dancer, I'm going to have Infinity Edge, and I'm going to have Guardian Angel, you know, because I'm getting killed by AP, I'm getting killed by assassins and everything like that. And I have a GA to try and help me stay alive because I just trust that Vayne's late game is going to be good enough anyways to sustain me. Now let's talk about some off builds. I feel like this type of build that I'm talking about right now, it's pretty standard. It kind of goes exactly into what you would expect. Okay, but there's situations actually where you wouldn't do this build. An item that I used to build this on Vayne all the time. I don't really build this on her anymore. I'd have to be really ahead for me to build this item. But even then, like I still don't really feel like I need Charge Blade because this build right here is already banging just by itself. Like this build right here shreds people late game. Like I said, minus the GA. You switch the GA out for some more crit. And you could switch it out for Solari's Charge Blade late. Like sometimes I'll do that, but for me, I'll just do the Bloodthirster a lot of times just because I like the extra vampirism and the shield that it gives me. But that's just me. But sometimes I'll still get GA just because it's such a safe item to get. Okay. Now, let's talk about, like, now if you're going against a team that has a lot of armor and you're playing ADC, how do you know which armor-piercing item to get? Because really there's two armor-piercing items that people go to. They either go to Mortal Reminder or they go to Grudge. How do you know which one to go to? How do you go to Reminder or Grudge? Which one do you do? So it depends on the situation. If they have healing, then you want Reminder, okay? If they don't have healing, then you want Grudge, okay? Because what Grudge is going to do, it's going to give you the good armor penetration as well, the exact same armor penetration, but it's also going to give them a slow for 1 second every empowered attack that you do, okay? So basically, whenever you cast abilities on Vayne, you're also slowing the enemy. What's Vayne's biggest strength? It's being able to kite her enemies. Kiting her enemies is what makes her strong. So you have to ask yourself once again, because I don't see people build this item a lot. I really don't. I don't see it, and I don't know why. And I think it's so often people are just set on like, oh, I have to build this item. It's just the item that I build. No, you don't necessarily have to build this item, okay? Sometimes this item is better, okay? But a lot of times people just aren't asking themselves the correct question, which is like the item that I should build in this situation. Okay, that's really just the way that you like that. Serpent's Fang. So here's another item. Like, let's say they're not super tanky, okay, but they have lots of shields. Okay, so what does that look like? Let's say it's a team like you got a Karma mid and you have a Janna support. Okay, Yeah, there you go. Karma mid, Janna support. That would be probably a good way of looking at it. And like maybe a Riven jungle. That's a team that's going to have lots of shields. Riven's going to have a shield like every 4 seconds. Karma's going to have a shield every couple seconds. Lulu's going to drop shields every couple seconds. Well, then maybe adding a Serpent's Fang is actually going to be a good item because it's going to give you extra armor pen, but it's also going to give you additional like shield bursting. It reduces shields, as you can see. Let me just read it. When you damage an enemy who is unaffected by Shield Reaver, reduce all shields on them by 50%, melee champion 35% range, or 35% for ranged champions. Shield reduction not applied to targets with shields that only block magic damage, okay? So this would be an item that you're building if the team is like shield heavy, okay? Very situational item, very situational item. There's not gonna be a lot of times that you do this. And like for me, I'm only doing this if it's like a super shield heavy team. Even then I'm still gonna be kind of passive on whether or not I do it just because the traditional build, but you have to once again gauge the situation. Are we not winning because of shields? Or are we not winning? Are we not winning because the shielding is just too strong and we can't break through the shields? If so, then the Serpent's Fang may be the item that you need to break into. You may need to jump into, and then deciding which item to drop when you're doing like really tricky builds like this. This does make it more difficult. So like for me in this situation, usually by the time like shields become, I'm probably almost on finishing my 3rd or 4th item. You know, it would also kind of depend on the support that I have. If I have a support that I increase my attack speed, then I'm probably going to drop static shift for it in order to get the additional shield breaking. But then what I'll probably do, just because then my attack speed will be slow, is I'd probably, instead of GA, I'd do like Phantom Dancer, okay? So that way I still have the attack speed and I'm still having the crit that I need, is probably what I would do in that type of situation. Or what I would probably even do even more so is I'd probably still have my static shift. Or if I felt like it was going to be like a shield game, I'd probably do something actually more so like this. Whoops. This thing isn't doing what I'm telling it to do. Hold on, give me a second here. There we go. Yeah, I'd probably do something even more like this, like build that last, because the shields are probably going to be something more so that comes in late game. Sometimes with building, you need to preemptively build, knowing like what you're going to be building into late, which I know it's very difficult for some people to be thinking about like, hey, what do I need to build in the future? But like this build, for example, if I have a team that's really shield heavy, once again, you know, Janna's, you got a Karma mid or something like that. You got like a Riven. And even then, like I said, I still may not even build this, but you have to be able to gauge the situation. Is it the shields that are literally causing you to just lose the team fights? Or like even a Draven. So like imagine a Draven, a Janna, and a Karma. You're talking insane shields because Draven's building Bloodthirster, so he's going to have a shield on him the whole game, basically, while he's attacking. Then you have the Janna, you have the Karma. Shields are going to be insane. That type of game, I probably am going to build a Serpent's Fang just because the shields will be unreal. Like, the shields are going to basically be almost his entire health, you know, if somebody puts a whole shield on Draven. So that would kind of be like a really good example of like when to do that as well. Once again, if it's a high like AP team, I'm doing something like this. Like this, I would only build this right here if it was like 4 AP champions. 4 AP champions or an all AP team. All AP team. It has to be 4 AP champions and an all AP. Otherwise, there's probably no way that I'm building this build right here. I said these are extremely situational builds as well, but I'm trying to give you guys an idea of like how to decide what to build, when to build. And then the order of building those things It kind of works the same way as what we were talking about before. Here, I'm always going this route first. I'm always going the hex first because I'm building the item for that. And then sometimes what you could even do is if you're going to build this item right here, okay, if you're going to build Maw, don't ever fully complete Maw, okay? Just build the hex, leave it at that, and then late game, complete Maw. Complete it last, okay? Literally last. Because the ratio of what you get when you switch from hex to Maw isn't really that huge, okay? Like, it is a lot more damage, but realistically, you're not getting it because of damage. You're getting it because of the shield and magic resist. That's the real reason you're getting it, okay? So I usually hold off on building that, and I focus more on the items that are actually going to give me damage. Like, I'd probably be going, like, trying to finish my Infinity Edge or something like that, okay? So think about it. Think about it like that, okay? Think about it like that. Boots, for me, I'm basically always going Glutinous Greaves. Basically always. There's really no situation that I'm not going to go Glutinous Greaves because I like the additional Omnivamp as well. There are extremely rare situations where I'll do Mercury Treads, but once again, it's very rare. Like it would have to just be the most crazy CC team, and I'd have to be behind. If it is a crazy CC team and I'm behind, and I'm dying because I keep getting locked down, then I may consider Mercury Treads. I actually may consider it as well. But otherwise, I'm basically always going Omnivamp as well. Now, here's something that you don't hear people talk about very often, okay? Basically, everybody always does Zonias, okay? Sorry, not Stasis. I'm thinking PC. And I agreed. It is the best. It is. I'm not saying it's not the best. There are situations though where I won't build Zonias, okay? Once again, if it's a high AP team, I might build Locket. I might. If I'm crazy ahead, I might be getting Protobelt. Unless I'm crazy ahead and I still feel like there's a chance that they could kill me, then yeah, I'm probably still going Stasis. There's even times where I go Stone Plate, which I know sounds absolutely crazy, but there are times that I do it, even though it's like reducing my damage. So, but the way that I'll use it, I want you to think about this, okay? With stone plating, people pick Zonias because they're just trying not to die, okay? But there's two things that happen, okay, when you pick Zonia. One, you can't die, but two, you're also out of the fight, okay? You're just done. And usually people do it the last second right before they're about to die, okay? But what do you do in situations where, like, you have to keep fighting because if you stop fighting, your team will die, but however, you're getting focused at the same time and the team's trying to blow you up? This is where stone plating actually can make sense. This is some high level situational stuff, and there's so few people I see who do this. It's so rare that I see people do this, but I have done this from time to time. It is very situational. But if I'm in a game where I know, like, I have to keep attacking, I have to keep fighting, I may go stone plating. Because what will happen, even though I'm taking that damage reduction, I know it's probably late game at this point, my damage is still absurd already. So, okay, look, I'm a full build Vayne. Instead of killing somebody in 3 or 4 auto attacks, now I'm going to kill them in 5 or 6. You know, maybe 7, big whoop, big whoop. I'm still producing massive damage because I'm a Vayne, and I still have true damage that isn't going to get stopped by this damage reduction, okay? But this allows me to create a massive shield because I got a bunch of people on me, and I'm also getting, read it. Gain a shield that absorbs 20% maximum health, decaying over 4 seconds. If there are 3 or more types of enemies nearby, the shield increased by 200%. Damage dealt is reduced by 40% for 4 seconds, okay? So I also get Omnivamp from it, an extra Omnivamp. All right? So in situations where you have to keep attacking and you can't not keep attacking, all right? Because if you stop attacking, your team's just going to get blown up without you. Stone plating can work, okay? You have to definitely learn when to use it, but I'm telling you, it is slept on, because all people ever think about when they see this is like, oh, 40% damage reduction, 40% damage reduction. If you're Vayne, 4 seconds is going to go by pretty quick, okay? Because one, you can tumble away. You're going to get that vampirism, kind of get your health back up and everything. Your team, you're giving your team more time to come towards you. You're still pounding on them as well, so they're still getting lower. They're pounding away at your shield, but like I said, you're getting that Omni Vamp from all of your items, plus this as well. You're basically going to get yourself back to like almost full health by the time the shield even decays, and by the time the enemy team even, or I said, it's very situational, but something to think about, guys. I said, I'm trying to give you guys just high level tips and tricks, because honestly, it's small things like that, understanding the situation, and in the situation, what gives you the best chance. Because like I said, let's go back to what we were talking about, okay? This right here is probably just considered an overall good, solid build. You're going to have people say, no, Wit's End is a standard item, okay? Wit's End is a great item. But if you're just going, this right here, best damage build, which with that still has safety. Obviously, I can make the damage build better if I drop a Guardian Angel. But an overall build that's going to grant me damage and safety, this build, it out-damages everything. It out-damages everything. And like I said, obviously some ADCs have a little bit different builds, but I'm hoping the concepts that I kind of explained to you guys and taught you here, you can use those concepts for the ADCs that you're playing. Because obviously there's ADCs that start Bloodthirster. Obviously there's ADCs that go Hurricane, which they just buffed Hurricane, so I'm expecting Jinx to be pretty good, which I'm excited. Jinx is such a solid ADC that's unfortunately not played. But yeah, anyways, guys, it's kind of a long video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I know some of these concepts, they're hard to grasp, and it's hard to think about these right away, especially when you're in game. Like, that's why you need to take the time to kind of learn about the items. It makes a difference. Because I always say this in a lot of my games, the difference between you and the challenger player you're trying to be, like if you're Diamond 4, it's not a build, or it's not the build, it's not this new combo, but build pathing is a big deal, okay? It isn't the build, okay? Because this is the build, but build pathing is different. Build pathing is doing this, okay? And I'm just going to, click random things. I'm not saying do this. I'm just clicking random things. Build pathing is switching things out for what is the correct situation in this situation, okay? That's build pathing. And build pathing is, like I said before, hold on, where the heck did it go? Because I want to use the correct item for this. Yeah, build pathing. Do I build this or this? That's another part of build pathing. Which one do I build first? Okay. Anyways, guys, I hope this helped you out. Oh, man, I need to change that now before I go into a game. I hope this helps you out. I hope you guys learned something. Think about it. Take the time to learn about it, because that makes a big difference, okay? Building the right items in the right situation and the right build path makes a big difference in winning games. It can change everything for you, okay? And in the rune thing as well. Think about what I said there. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.